This album came out in 1971. 1971, 48 years ago. I was listening to it last week, or 2 weeks ago, and it just inspired me. I was like, yeah, we got to talk about what's going on. 48 years ago, and every song on that album is still as present and as current as it was back then. I would take the speakers and slide them over so it'd be one on either side of my head, and I would just lay down in the living room and put that album on and just cry, because it just meant so much. It was just so incredibly powerful. Flying High in the Friendly Sky. They were talking about heroin in that one. But today, it's opioids, still going on, flying high in the friendly sky, looking for escape, trying to find that desire objectified to be, to experience who and what you are. And that's what's going on. There's an emptiness inside of a lot of people, emptiness inside of a lot of us, where we act out with different addictive behaviors. We might go shopping, or we don't feel so good, so we grab for another donut or an extra cookie, or in my case, 2 quarts of Haagen-Dazs ice cream. You know, but there's that's going on. It's flying high in the friendly sky. Another song was Save the Children. Save the children, save the babies. And now what do we have? We have the border kids that are housed in what look like cages, and the DACA children that don't know what their future might be, and sent back to a country they've never ever experienced before. Foster kids like crazy, so many foster youth. And then they run through a program, turn 18, become emancipated and kicked out into the street. What do we do? Who really cares? One of the words in there, he says, who really cares? Who's willing to try, yeah, to save the world? What's happening, brother? He asked in one of the other songs. What's happening, brother? They're talking about war in that case. It says, is there anything going on where we used to go and dance? Will our ball clubs win a pennant? Do you think we have a chance? Is there anything happening other than where I've been? Where he was that, and that song was the Vietnam War, coming home from the Vietnam War. But today, where have they been? They've been in prison. Our country, the land of the free, the home of the brave, and the land of the jailed. 5% of the world's population, 25% of the world's prison population. That's sinful. That's a crime. What's happening, brother? Disproportionate number of those people are of color in jail. And a lot of them have been put in jail because they suffer from a brain malady and a spiritual malady and emptiness, a donut hole inside their body that they try to fill with a substance or with a behavior. And as a result, we criminalize that instead of looking at how do we help these kind of people. What are we doing? What kind of questions are we asking? But it's in the music. It's in the music. I've been reading of Kurt Vonnegut's commencement speeches, and in one of the commencement speeches he says that the only proof that he needed for the existence of God was music. He wants that on his tombstone. The only proof he needed of the existence of God was music, because that does it. How many of us have the song track of our lives? It's songs that happened when we were in our teenage years, our college years. We still listen to them today, right? That's the song track of our life. And those songs really speak to us. And oh my goodness, I was driving down the street the other day, and some car next to me was the tires were vibrating because it was playing so loud. And I'm thinking, what is that young man gonna do when he's got his grandkids in the car? You know, here's a golden oldie from back when I was growing up. Yeah, I mean, golly gee, you can't sing those lyrics today. How you gonna sing those to your 2-year-old or 3-year-old when they're in the backseat of the car? Oh, but at least we could sing these songs, even if they do bring us to tears. The reason this is so important for Vonnegut is he considers himself a humanist. He doesn't necessarily believe in God. He believes in the spirit of humanity, although he does talk a lot about how much he loves Jesus, which is very interesting. He says his favorite joke would be that when he dies, say that he's gone to heaven. That would be a good joke for him, because he doesn't believe in God. But he believes in humanity. He believes in what we believe in. He believes that there's a power for good within each and every one of us, and that we can use that power for good to move us forward. He believes in that number one tenet of the science of mind, which is oneness. Oneness. And I believe that oneness is begging our attention. It's saying, grab a hold of this concept and start living from this concept. And it works not just for these global ideas that I'm talking about, not for these national ideas that I'm talking about, not for these social ills that I'm talking about, but it also works in our private lives, in our homes, in our relationships with our beloved, with our family members, right? Family, friends. God's making up for family, right? There are relationships that we have that are challenging to us on the micro level and on the macro level. And Dr. Holmes says in the Holmes Papers, he says, that which is yourself is myself. That which is ourself collectively and ourselves individually is the one and only self there is. There is no other self. There's just the one, as John said in his prayer this morning, and his prayer just now. There's only the one God, the one life, the one power, individualized at each and every one of us. And in that individualization, we are brought here to do something special and unique that no one else can do. No one can create the songs that Monique creates. That's Monique's special gift and talent. And I don't know how you bring those lyrics together and bring them out. I mean, I do know how to breathe, though. I love that. Take a breath. There's such power in the breath. So often, though, we go counter to our nature. Our nature is to look for similarities. Our brains generally want to look for similarities. We want to look for something we can relate to. In the Imago Love translation, they talk about that, where you meet somebody and they're just so electric, the chemistry is just right, and they start talking, and you go, oh, I like tacos. Oh, you like tacos? I like tacos too. We must be a match made in heaven. You like vanilla ice cream? I like vanilla ice cream too. This is ideal. And then you see that they squeeze the tube at the bottom instead of in the middle of the tube, or they leave a little bit of milk in the bottom, or they'll just there's still that much left in the glass. Why didn't you just pour it all in there and then go down to 7-Eleven and buy some more milk? No, just go put it back in there, and then suddenly I'm not loving you anymore. Because you see, while our brains are made to see the similarities, something else happens within us. There's a woman, a writer named Mickey Scott Bay Jones, who says that it is intellectually, spiritually, and relationally lazy to only focus on our similarities as our core to how we care for one another and organize together. See, that's what we do. We look for the similarities, and when we don't see similarities, we start to look at the differences, and we start to outline the differences, and suddenly the differences become more important than the similarities. But the differences is what makes life beautiful. See, the differences and the particularities, the differences in faith, particularities in people's belief systems, all of those things, that's what creates this rich tapestry of life. And if we're so busy just only focusing on the similarities and not also understanding the differences and making space for those differences, we're going to lose the idea that there is this beautiful tapestry of life that we're a part of. The easy way is to bypass the differences and go right to there's one life, one God, and we're all one. And yes, that is true. That is true. But God is not upset or diminished. In fact, it is enhanced by the differences. Enhanced by the differences. It's our goal to see the beauty in spirit. And not just the beauty in the ordinary things of spirit, but also the extraordinary things. And the extraordinary things are the different things. Ordinary is I see that, you see that. Okay, that's cool. We're what is the word I'm looking for? Pass. You guys have asked about my mom from time to time. I do a little mom update. She's doing really well. She's actually tapping her right foot. She broke her femur not that long ago. It's healed, and now she's tapping that foot. So that's the right motions coming back. But she's not quite got the cognitive thing back yet. And she knows that she's not saying the right thing. So sometimes when we're talking and having a conversation and she gets stuck, she'll go, cancel. So I just had a cancel moment. Then she follows up with hitherefore, there too, and it starts in another direction. So hitherefore, there too. The beautiful thing is to see the extraordinary, to see the differences. One of the things that helps us, I think, what helps me, and maybe it'll help others, is to get really present with the know thyself concept, you know, to know your story. But more than to know your story, to know your narrative. Narrative is a little bit more than just your story. Your narrative is what connects you to your life and your past, and it's an accounting of all of it. It's not just, I lived on Main Street, and then I moved over to Sycamore, and then we left Sycamore, we moved over near Tapo Street, and then we moved up to Bridle Path because Dad hit the lotto. No, it's not like that. It's the narrative is the connecting it to how your whole family works. It's more than just telling the stories and the facts. It's the context of what happens in your life. Like the Rambo narrative is a wonderful one that I'm closely related to because I happen to be a Rambo. But my great papa, his dad, great granddad, Gale Alonzo. So that'd be great-great-grandfather, Gale Rambo, was a slave owner. And he fell in love with a slave named Lydia, half black, half Indian. Beautiful woman. You've got pictures of her from that back then. And they had very light-skinned children. Alonzo and Benjamin were the first two. Nadan and Darius were the second two. 4 sons. They were in Loudon County, Alabama. And Alonzo and Benjamin were going to school, public school in Alabama, because they were passing for white. Then they were discovered to be black children, and they were kicked out of the school. Well, he wanted his children to have an education, so he moved the family to a place called Monterey in northeastern Texas, near what is Longview, Texas today. Back then, Texas was a free state. And every time he would have another child, he would buy more acreage of land. So he bought a large property, and he would come back and forth between Alabama and Texas. And he had his 2 more sons, he bought more property, and they created a community called Rambo Community. And they founded a schoolhouse there because education meant to him freedom. Education is part of the narrative of our family. Some years later, someone believes that Gale was killed on the way back because they found out what he was doing. It didn't go so well. This is all like 13 years before the Civil War, all this took place. So it was a pretty rough time. But his choice was to educate his family because he knew that education equaled freedom. My grandfather became a principal of a school. My aunt was the first black student at Louisiana Southern University at 17 years old, graduated with a degree in sociology there. My dad is a PhD. My grandfather, principal of school. My grandmother was dean of women at Fisk University. My brother has 2 degrees from the University of Texas. I, on the hand, took 33 years to graduate from college. I went to 5 and finally got out at Antioch in 2008. But I used my choice for a different kind of freedom. And I did a great career in television. But you get the narrative in our family is education. Education leads to freedom, education leads to choice. What is your narrative? Who are your people? What is your story? If you don't understand yourself, you will not be able to understand anybody else. So understanding your story and relating it to your life and putting the pieces in order is valuable to moving forward. That same Mickey Scott Bay Jones says that true connection happens when you understand your own story and how it connects to the story of others and the meta-narrative of the human struggle, the larger narrative of the human experience. How do we move into more freedom and more choice for more people? And how does your narrative reflect that on an individual basis, in your own home, and on a larger scale? And the beautiful thing about the science of mind is it helps us in that journey. It helps us to understand that because we have principles that are common to all, and we are able to use those principles. We know that there is a law for good that works for us. And as we understand who we are, as we understand our narrative and what that means for our daily lives, and put that into play with our consciousness and make the choices to bring that narrative alive, the way we're trying to make the choices to bring our vision and mission statement alive, then law comes together to make the ordinary extraordinary, to move us into the next phase of existence. Understanding our story and the meta-narrative of the human struggle gets us to the place where we can begin to ask, how can we engage ourselves and how can we engage with others in a healthy way? How can we engage with Uncle Jim, who likes to have maybe a little bit too much bourbon at Christmas time? How do we figure that story out? How do we deal with the nephew who has gotten a little out of hand and has been engaged in some nefarious activities with some of his friends after school? How do we bring ourselves to talk to that young man and connect to that young man? If we understand who we are and where we're from and what our narrative is, we can bring that into the conversation, bring that into the healing. And it begins with also healing our sense of separateness. It's so easy to feel like we are apart. See, what's going on is the call to see beauty in the diversity and beauty in the differences in all the people that are around us, and seeing how those differences work for good. To awaken from this illusion, as Thich Nhat Hanh tells us, to awaken from the illusion of separation. If you look around, the diversity on this planet is amazing. It's what gives it such richness. It much brings the complexity and the strangeness of it all. I was I was listening to NPR this week, and I heard something about the dragon wasp. Have you ever heard of the dragon wasp? Talk about some complexity of the nature of Earth species. The dragon wasp will find a roach, and it will sting the roach just behind the brain. And by doing that, it attaches on, and now it controls the roach. It will now use the roach to dig a hole for the roach, so that the roach will climb down into the hole, make its own grave, and then this little dragon wasp will lay an egg in the roach, and then disengage and leave the roach there in the hole, and then the larvae eats the roach to become the next dragon wasp. Now that's some complex shit. Where did that come from? That's some incredible diversity. But you know what? Now I'm not a big roach fan. I don't really care how many dragon wasps drag roaches down into holes. But it does bug me that Thank you. That was solely unintended, but I love it. I'm here all week. But it does. It's like, here's the rub here though. The habitat for the dragon wasp is being wiped away at an acre an hour because it lives down in one of the rainforests. We're killing the habitat for the dragon wasp. Now, I don't really know what the larger scheme is for the dragon wasp, but it's here. It's part of the diversity and complexity of our planet, but we're blowing it away. We're blowing away species faster than ever before. We're in the Anthropocene era or something like that. Who knows that word? What is that? Do you know that? It's the era where humankind is having more impact on the planet than anything else. We have reached that stage where we are changing the planet faster than anything else. But the other thing about diversity that's so neat is, as a gardener, I've been growing some beans this last year, and I want to grow some more this year. And the bean seeds, they all look pretty much the same. They look very much the same. But Some grow green beans, some grow yellow wax beans, some grow purple beans, and the bean seeds look pretty much the same. But what comes out of them is very, very different. This diversity of species is amazing. The difference in foods and the variety of foods was at the Smithsonian a few years back at the Native American Museum, and they have I thought the museum was great until I went down to the cafeteria. Oh my God, they have foods from every native culture of the world downstairs, so you can sample food from the indigenous people of northern portions of South America. You can the western portions of North America, the southeast parts of North America, and it's all different, and it's all so good. It was fantastic. Or going to a rose garden, all the variety of roses. It's amazing to see. There's a Bob Hope rose. Bob Hope has his own rose. Ernest Holmes has his own rose. Yeah, there are all kinds of variety of roses. Diversity is amazing, Joan Brown, in a wonderful essay called The Embracing Diversity, says that sometimes that which may be different or disturbing, dragon wasp, or disturbing, is actually a call to look more deeply into the soul level meaning of our lives. When we see something that's different or disturbing, now I did some nature things for us, but a lot of times what we see that's different or disturbing are like the homeless people that I was talking about. Or sometimes what we see as different and disturbing is the 22 and a 24-year-old young man this week that went out and armed themselves in bulletproof garb and then took assault rifles and mowed down 29 people. I mean, that's disturbing. Definitely different. Definitely extraordinary. Part of the diversity of human experience. How do we look at that from a soul level, from a love level, from a space of trying to understand level, so that we can find a way to put meaning to it for our own lives, the meaning to our own lives? How do we impact that and make a change? One of the things about the universe is that it bends toward justice. There is a healing presence. We know that. We see that. You get a paper cut, you wipe it, stops bleeding, 2 days later, you don't feel it. There is a healing presence, just like that healing presence here in our bodies, on the universal level too. So that's what I mean by the universe bends toward justice. And our particular stories, that narrative that I'm talking about, becomes our compass that helps us to find that soul level meaning in our lives, so that we can be those contributors to our individual experiences, yes, but also to the larger experience. Our individual experiences are really great. I look around here, I see it. I mean, I witness it. We are so fortunate, you and I, the people in this room. This is why I talk about things that are outside this room, because I know that we're going to go home today and there's going to be food in the icebox, unless you didn't go to Costco this week, right? There's going to be gas in the car, unless you're like Peter and me and we use electricity. But there's going to be prosperity and abundance in our lives. I want to drop a F-bomb right now, because we are F-bomb abundantly prosperous. F-bomb ing, abundantly prosperous. So, okay, now what? Now we look at the narrative of our lives. We look for the soul level meaning of our lives, and we decided we're going to do something more. That we're going to awaken from the illusion of separateness. You see, so many of us have stopped hearing the messages of the mountains and the rivers. This afternoon, Johanna and I are going to go sit at the beach so we can hear the message of the ocean, because we like the call that the ocean brings. But when we stop hearing the messages of the rivers and the mountains, when we stop hearing the messages of the stinking crazy dragon wasp, when we stop hearing the messages of nature and the universe around us, then we stop hearing the messages of the suffering of our brothers and our sisters. We stop paying attention to the headlines and just go, oh, that's just another headline. See, it's all connected. It's all part of the larger diverse image that's going on. Joan Brown says, we are called to be larger than who we can imagine being in this moment. Sit with that for a minute. You and I are called to be larger than we can imagine being in this moment. And that's really sweet. And before you get too blown away by the idea of larger, it just talks about in this moment. So that means the next moment just a little bit larger, and the next moment just a little bit larger, and the next moment a little bit larger. And then when you look at the narrative of your life, you look at those moments collectively, you become way larger and bigger. That's what's ahead for us. So many of us have, in our media, in our corporations, our government, our religious institutions, many of them, and corporations, have looked at the other so minutely and defined it so tightly that the other has become an it. And as soon as it becomes an it, then there's no person. There's no more thou. There's no more oneness. Now you can do whatever you want to an it. You can kick it around. You can throw it away. It's useless. It's just it, you know? But when it's a person, when it's a river, when it's a mountain, when it's a stream, when it's clear water, when it's a child, and your love gets involved, now you have to think about how I can be larger in the next moment to protect that, to bring beauty to that. I ran into a poem this week. I want to share it with you in our closing. It's called For You and For Me by a writer named Jonathan Stalls. He says, I'm stepping more toward love. I'm stepping more towards freedom. I'm stepping more towards honesty. I'm stepping more towards dignity. For you, for me. I'm taking greater risk for peace. I'm taking greater risk for justice. I'm taking greater risk for what is ours, not what is mine. I'm taking greater risk for Mother Nature, for you, for me. I'm making more room to sit with you in pain, in longing, in loss. I'm making more room to sit with myself in pain and longing and loss. I'm making more room to invite you to sit with me in pain, in longing, in loss. For you, for me. I'm going to hug you harder. I'm going to hug you longer. I'm going to let you hug me. For you, for me. I'm buying less, I'm giving more, I'm wasting less, I'm planting more. For you, for me. I'm spending more time with trees. I'm spending more time with children. I'm spending more time with elders. I'm spending more time in silence. For you, for me. I'm reaching across the aisle. I'm reaching across the street. I'm reaching across the divide. I'm reaching further into me. For you, for me. More love, more freedom, more healing, more rest, more time, more spirit, more vulnerability, more nature, more wisdom, more humility. For you, for me. What's going on? For you, for me. And so it is. I'm going to leave this piece of paper up here until I can't stand looking at it anymore. Gilroy, 3. El Paso, 20. Dayton, 9. Over 50 people injured. That's a lot of lives changed. Oh, yeah, that. Right. I was ready to go right into prayer. Let's do this. And before we do it, so the ordinary is what we see in common, right? The extraordinary are the differences. And the ready to work, to put the law to work for us is seeing those two as the one, and then knowing through our story what we can do, using our principles, which involves the law, and using our understanding of good, which is the idea behind the universe. It's a universe of good. That's what we're doing here. That's what we're choosing to remember. Let's do it right now. I choose to remember. Spirit is meeting spirit in the ordinary and the extraordinary, so I stay ready to put the law to work for good. Okay. Or gaud. It's all gaud. Yeah. All right, so we're going to do prayer. In our form of prayer, science mind, spiritual mind treatment, we know the 5 steps. There's the, do we know them? Who took them? Who took the class? Who knows the 5 steps? Who feels like doing A student work right now? Come on. What's the first step? Recognition. Spirit. Exactly. Second step. Unification. Third step. Realization. What you're praying about. What you're actualizing in your life. After that, we go to the 4th step. Thanksgiving. And finally, let it go. Release. Here we go. All right. What are you calling for in the realization step? Bring that into the room right now. We'll wrap it all together in the 5 steps as one. Here we go. Recognizing there is one life, one God, one presence, infinitely divided over and over again into the complexity that is life itself, individualized as you and me. Everyone around us, everything around us is an expression of the divine. It takes all of this and more to bring God into manifestation. This beautiful, loving presence, this no-thingness that is the everythingness as well, the infinity beyond infinity. How wonderful it is to be a part of this unified understanding and this awesome experience, so that we can bring forth into our experience the gaud of our lives, the joy, the prosperity, the abundance, the healing, the right action, the solutions, the answers, the smoothing out of the rough places. I'm feeling in this moment that what appears to be the just and the unjust all receive the same love of the divine. So in this moment, we move ourselves away from the judgments that would cause us to see life in duality of opposites, good and bad, right and wrong, and simply know that there is opportunity out of chaos. There is this moment for us to move into wholeness and oneness. So we do that now through our prayer. We recognize that all that is divine is moving forward in a sweet harmony of good, manifesting what is exactly right for the moment to bring more peace, more joy, more love into the universe. Each and every one of us is an expression of God, allowing God to be more fully realized in life. So we do that now with ease and with grace, without the sense of effort. We simply stand and allow, and then take the next indicated right action. Something within us says, yes, this is what is ours to do, and then we do it with ease and with grace, here and now, this moment. I'm so grateful for this knowledge, and so grateful for the CSL Simi Valley community that is hearing this word and understanding this idea. I'm grateful for those that are watching us on Facebook right now, that are on the live stream, that are catching this vibrational energy that says yes to the universe, yes to that which is bending towards justice, leaning toward good, and we bring that good out into manifestation by the actions that we take each and every day from this moment forward. I call this action good and very good. I trust in it with gratitude. I let it be and release it to the law by saying, and so it is. Thank you.